I'm the Mademoiselle and Deuxième Chanel. Welcome to my second channel. If you guys are not aware, we got 4 channels now. Everything is going to be linked down below. And before we even get started, I want y'all to comment on if you like this little lighting situation I got going on. I have a sunset lamp that's like placed right here. And I kind of like the vibe, but who knows? By the time I go to edit this, I probably won't like it. But let me know if you guys like it. It turns different colors. And I thought it was nice to set the mood, you feel me? So as you guys can tell by the title, we are going to be doing a Voodoo story time. In particular, one about lugawus. Lugawus are literally my favorite mystical creature. I don't condone what they do. However, they are just fascinating to me, specifically because anyone could be a lugawu and you would never know. If you guys are not aware of what a lugawu is, please make sure you guys head to the description and or the pinned comment down below to watch the other videos I've done on lugawus, including what is a lugawu and other story times I've done about lugawu. So before I even get into this story, please understand, I never remember the full details of these stories because I've literally been getting these stories since I was 9 years old. I am now 29, and there's some of you guys that think it makes sense to be commenting on my videos saying that you don't believe them or that they're fake because I don't remember the full details. I'm not going to remember something that someone told me when I was 10. At the end of the day, I remember the breaks of the story and the lesson of the story, and that's all that really matters. So if that's something that bothers you, please feel free to click off, and I will see you in the next one. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to be disguising certain things that I do remember for privacy reasons. So for this story, we're going to be retelling a story that a family friend told me way back when I had to be like 11 or 12 years old. This family friend was from Latibonite, as are a lot of people from Jefferson Park in Elizabeth, where I grew up. Now, if you guys are not aware or you're new here or you missed when I talk about it all the time, I grew up on Jefferson Park, which is a predominantly Haitian community. And there was so much spiritual activity going on the park itself, but also a lot of these people came to Jefferson Park to live there and had their own stories coming back from Haiti. And of course, a lot of people that lived on Jefferson Park had their own stories to share about when they lived in Haiti. So I'm going to be telling more of these stories over time. So of course, buckle in, sit tight, grab your snack, grab your tea, grab everything you need, because this is going to be pretty interesting. Also, don't forget to smash the subscribe button, smash the like button, and share this video with everybody that you know. So, of course, we're going to be talking about the mystical beings called lugawus. Lugawus are mystical beings that are known to kidnap and kill children to steal their blood, power, essence, soul, whatever the case may be. And when it comes to lugawus, lugawus are typically turned into lugawus for doing really bad deeds or betraying a mumbo, an ogon, or a bokor, which is a voodoo spiritual leader. There's so many lugawus out there. Literally could be anyone. It could be your neighbor. It could be your pastor. It could be your best friend. And in this case, it could be someone living in your own house. I'm just going to tell y'all parts of Haiti. I ain't going to say the specific neighborhoods, okay? Privacy. So this story, like I said, takes place in Latibonite, Haiti. For those of you guys who are from Latibonite, shout out to y'all. Let's get my man's from there. And I could never, ever figure out, is it Lartibonite or Artibonite? I need to know. Okay, comment down below what is the right way to say it, all right? So in this particular case, when it comes to Latibonite, if you don't know, Latibonite is one of those places that is known to have a lot of spiritual activity. People always say that people in Latibonite are always doing black magic. That's what they do. Ja, 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 ja. And it's very interesting because people say that about Haiti in general, but there are specific communities that are known for doing a lot of things. Also understand before watching the rest of this video, black magic and voodoo are not the same thing. Two completely different things. People use black magic in order to do harm onto people. However, you do not have to be part of the voodoo religion, culture, or lifestyle in order to do so. Many people will do black magic in some way, somehow intertwine it with voodoo or santeria or whatever the case may be. And none of that is synonymous. Okay. Voodoo, Santeria, Obia, and things alike are cultural practices, lifestyles, and religions that deal with honoring ancestors. All right. That is not black magic. Examples of black magic include love spells, money spells, anything dealing with manipulating the universe in order to get something that isn't necessarily for you for selfish purposes. So we have to name some characters. The characters in our story, we're going to call them Jean and Becca. So Jean and Becca were essentially childhood sweethearts. They have been together and I guess liked each other They have been together since they were children and, you know, kind of like a high school sweetheart, however, younger, okay? Becca and Jean were literally attached since they were like in kindergarten and started dating since they were in maybe middle school. Fast forward to, I will say, when they were graduating high school, heading into college, they decided to move to Port-au-Prince because we already know, tout Haitien sur Port-au-Prince, okay? All Haitians come from Port-au-Prince. That is the capital. Jean and Becca decided to settle in Port-au-Prince. And when they settled in Port-au-Prince, everything was going well. So well, in fact, they ended up having their first child. And this first child was a girl. We're going to call her Catherine. So Catherine, Jean, Becca were living their best little lives in Port-au-Prince, okay? Jean was making good money for what it was, and so was Becca. So let's just say Becca was a school teacher and Jean owned a supermarket. Or like on T-Machine, on buy one side. Let's just say it like that. Because again, privacy reasons. So they were making really good money. Everything was going well. And of course, little Catherine was in school. So by this point, Catherine is probably 4 or 5 years old. Of course, she starts doing her primaire, as they say. She starts going into pre-K. A lot of people don't want to play with Catherine, but Catherine doesn't really think anything of it because Catherine's a loner anyway. She's one of those kids who's super quiet. She could play with herself. She could do anything herself. She doesn't really care that none of the kids want to play with her, to be quite honest with you. Over time, things start getting really hard for Jean and Becca, specifically because a lot of people just don't want to live near them. People are silently moving away from them, silently not talking to them. Jean didn't really think anything of this, specifically because he got work. He don't really got time to be talking and fraternizing with people anyway. And honestly, the only person that really kind of noticed this was Becca. Now, a quick little preface about Becca and Jean. So Jean, super religious, comes from a super religious background, and Becca comes from a more voodoo religious background. However, their differences never really tore them apart. They never really had issues with that. Jean had his spiritual practices. Becca had her spiritual practices, but they never really came together to, I guess, discuss on if they would go on one path to raise Catherine, or if they would essentially like just drop spirituality altogether. Like, honestly, I always find it interesting when people are on two completely different spectrums of beliefs and they have kids, because it's like, what do you raise the kid to believe? Do you just let the kid choose when they get old enough? Like, I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions down below, but that's neither here or there. It gets to a point where in the neighborhood, kids just start going missing and kids start dying, and they're dying of things that are very preventable. Now, I know a lot of you guys are like, well, it's Haiti. There's no doctors. Okay, we're in Port-au-Prince. Most of the doctors that you are going to find is going to be in Port-au-Prince. Okay, that is Haiti's capital. These kids are dying of fevers, which is not something uncommon, right? They're dying of like stuff like, you know, like the flu and stuff. A lot of people weren't thinking anything of it till one kid became 4 kids, became 6 kids, became 10 kids. And at that point, people really started to push themselves away from Catherine and started to push themselves away from Becca. It was only a matter of time where people really started to alienate Jean, Becca, and Catherine. And it got to the point where it really bothered Becca. And she told Jean, like, listen, I don't want to live here no more. I want to go somewhere else. So they go and they end up settling in Akay. Funny enough, Akay is another part of Haiti that has a lot of voodoo spiritualism. Funny enough, Akay is another part of Haiti where they love their voodoo child, okay? They're very deep into it and they don't play, okay? Like, they really don't play. They're very, very... I don't know how to explain it. They're very serious people. I'll say that. I have a lot of friends. I have a few friends that are from Akay. And if y'all think I'm serious, they're more serious than me. All right. So when it comes to people in Akay, they don't really play that. They're very serious people, but they're also very spiritual people. And I'm not talking about black magic. I'm talking about spiritual, you know, because voodoo, like I say all the time on this channel, is not demonic in any way. All right. But a lot of these people do practice working with their ancestors. So Catherine gets put into school, and the same thing that was happening in Port-au-Prince is now happening in Akay. Kids just don't want to bang with her. Okay. People are avoiding her like the plague, and she doesn't really understand why, but she also doesn't really care. But it wasn't everybody that didn't want to talk to Catherine. She did start making friends here and there, some boys, some girls. They would walk to and from school with her. And, you know, sometimes they would help her with homework or she would help them with homework. So she started forging some bonds as she got a little bit older. Eventually, she kind of starts trying to ask these kids, like, hey, like, why is it that nobody wants to talk to me? Like, why is it that like a lot of people kind of just like avoid me? So now she has a friend. We're going to call her Nicole, right? She goes and she asks Nicole, like, hey, like, why is it that nobody wants to talk to me? Like, I understand that, you know, I'm the new kid and I don't really care because I can do things by myself, but why don't people want to talk to me? And nobody wants to answer this question, okay? All these new little friends she's made about maybe 3 or 4 little new friends. Nobody wants to tell her why nobody wants to talk to her. Short time later, a lot of kids in Akay start dying. But these kids are like infants. I'm talking about like newborns. So it's easy to overlook this because due to a lot of lack of resources in a lot of Haitian neighborhoods, it is definitely possible that a lot of these kids ended up dying because of malnutrition or just, you know, the baby not being delivered properly. It was kind of easy to overlook. However, what wasn't easy to overlook was number of kids that were just dying like straight out the womb. Again, it went from like 1 to 6 to like 12 in a matter of like 6 months. So everyone in this Akay neighborhood is absolutely perplexed. They're like, there's no way there's all these babies dying and we don't know why, really, right? And that's the crazy part about all of this. There was no real diagnosis for these newborns when they were dying. It was strictly just like them being born and then they would die in their sleep, right? So now it ends up being a situation where everybody's thinking, oh, no, c'est lugawou. Okay, and so lugawou ain't no other reason for there to be these babies dying. So now everybody's on the lookout for the lugawou. Okay, everybody's like, the lugawou lives among us. We have to find the lugawou because if not, these babies are going to keep dying. And that's what kept happening. Every single person that gave birth within the time that Jean, Becca, and Catherine were there passed away. Until one couple. We're going to call these people, let's see, Ashley and Guy. I don't even know where I came up with those names, okay? So we had Ashley and Guy. Ashley and Guy lived pretty close to Jean, Becca, and Catherine, and her little brother. However, they lived like on a diagonal. Like it was like across the street, but it was kind of like a little bit further across the street. And they all became really good friends. Becca, Jean, G, and Ashley became very, very close, specifically because Becca just started to get really, really sick out of nowhere within the year or so that they ended up moving to Akay. So they were the only ones that actually cared about her. They would bring her food. They would keep her company, help her take care of her baby. So they really, really forged a really strong bond. As a matter of fact, Ashley and G were the only ones that actually really talked to them very regularly. They would all go to each other's houses. The kids would play together because Ashley and G had other kids. They were a little bit older though. They had to be somewhere between like the 10 to 15-year-old mark. So her kids were a little bit older than Catherine. However, they would still play with Catherine because at this point, Catherine's like, 7, 8, but then her little brother's an infant. So everybody was really, really cool. They were really close family friends to the point where Ashley actually asked Becca to be the godmother of her child. So fast forward now, Ashley has the baby. Okay. So now we could say the baby's maybe 1 or 2 months old. And Ashley and Guy are also very spiritual, just like Becca and her family. So they were having a voodoo ceremony and everybody's outside for one of these spiritual ceremonies. I can't even tell you which one it is. Not only do I not remember, but there's so many different voodoo ceremonies and stuff that I don't know nothing about to even be telling y'all. Essentially, they're all outside. They have this little ceremony for whatever spirit. And as they're cleaning up and everything for the ceremony, they're all just sitting outside chilling. So they end up having a ceremony, and as they're cleaning up and wrapping things up, they all just decide to chill outside for a little bit. And mind you, they're in their laku. Okay, they're not walking around or anything. They're in their laku. They're in their backyard, just chilling. They got the newborn. They got some, other families over from different parts of Haiti that came to, do the ceremony with them or whatever the case may be. And all of a sudden they see a cat. Now, this is not uncommon. You see cats in Haiti all day, every day. But one thing you need to know about Haitians, they hate cats. They hate cats specifically because of the story and a lot of other stories I've told on my channel, okay? They see this cat and the cat just looks strange to them. It's a pretty, the eyes are just very different for this cat. The cat's eyes look almost human. And on top of that, the cat is just like, it's a pretty big cat. It's like abnormally large. And also there's some big species of cats, okay? There's some families where the cats are pretty big. So they're just looking at the cat and they're just, you know, trying to figure out like where it came from because they've never seen it before. And it's like a multicolored type of cat too. It has stripes, but it's like black, white, gray, whatever the case may be. Interesting looking cat, but they're like, okay, like we don't know what this is. Maybe it's just someone's cat that got out of their laku. Fast forward, weeks pass by and they're continuously just sitting outside chilling at night. A lot of Haitian families do this, right? And they keep seeing this cat, and this cat is very persistent. Like I'm talking about hanging around the house, hanging around the fire, hanging around the food, hanging around Ashley and G and the new baby. And everybody at this point starts to get a little like, is this a lugawu or some shit? Like, we gonna kill this shit. You know, like at this point, it's the second night in a row they're seeing this cat. Some people are like, no, keep this shot long way, Paul, leave the cat alone. While some people are like, nah, kill that shit. No, we are not about to go through this shit right now. So eventually, after a series of nights of seeing this cat, at this point, we're on day 5, day 6, they're like, no, something's not right with this cat. But Ashley and G were like, oh no, we're not just gonna kill a living being because we think it's a lugawu or whatever, like, the cat's not really doing anything, it's not that deep. So that particular night when they said that, everybody goes to sleep in the house. And as they're going to sleep in the house, they end up hearing this cat screaming at the top of its lungs, okay? Trying to get them to come out the house. Now, of course, they're not about to go outside because of a cat, but the cat sound abnormally human. Like it is screaming. It kind of sounds like it's saying words, but see, Ashley and G are like, that don't make sense because cats can't talk, right? There's no way that there's a talking cat outside. Okay, you know, shot papale, right? So everybody else that's in the house with them is like, no, c'est un lugawou vleti munla, ja. Like y'all need to go outside and do this and do that. Listen, I don't know what this and that was, with the exception of maybe lay salt out, because that's the only thing I can think of that would try to, like, you know, that would probably successfully kill a lugawou. Ashley and Gear are like, no, stop that nonsense. Lugawou la. There's no lugawou in this neighborhood. Ja. And they're like, bro, there's a cat screaming outside and it sounds like it's saying words. As far as the words they were saying, from what I remember, it could have been saying, Shortyy, like, get out, like, Shortyy, type shit. Like, yeah. So at this point, Ashley and Gear like, listen, we gonna go to sleep. Y'all could sit here and stay up and try to kill the lugawou, but like, we're not gonna go sit there and kill an innocent being specifically because y'all think that it's a lugawou. So everybody goes to sleep. They wake up in the morning and the newborn has passed away. Obviously, this was devastating. This was nuts. This was very, very disheartening. When Ashley lost her newborn, it was really, really traumatic for her. She didn't understand what happened. She didn't really understand what could have killed her newborn. However, of course, this is Haiti. A lot of times there's not much medical intervention that can be done because a lot of times the doctors or the hospitals are a good little distance away, depending on what neighborhood you're from. And on top of that, it's just, I mean, it's Haiti. There's not too many resources available to many different people. In this case, Ashley and G were just kind of in shock because the baby didn't have any issues. As a matter of fact, that night, the kid didn't have a fever. The kid was happy, go lucky, having a grand old time, chilling outside with family. So they were just like, we don't understand why now our baby's dead. So of course we have Becca and Jean coming to comfort Catherine, you know, the little boy coming to comfort, you know, G and Ashley. And she's looking for comfort in Becca because Becca is basically the godmother of this child. And Becca is like the typical Haitian person at a funeral. She's doing all types of shit. Screaming, hollering, rolling on the floor, doing all of that, okay? So of course, they bury this child. And it's very interesting because people are now coming up to Ashley and G or whatever the fuck I named him. And they're like, pour qui ça nous get Becca avec Jean là? Like, why is Becca and Jean here? And they're like, Becca is the godmother to this child. Like, why would she not be here? And they just kind of looking at her like, you know, like, okay, shoot yourself type shit. And of course, there's some classmates of Catherine that end up coming, and they are just mean mugging her. Let me do your trois etifia. They are just staring at her. They're just like, they're staring into her freaking soul. And of course, unfortunately for Catherine, she's not understanding why everybody just keeps staring at her. So whatever, they end up burying this child. Becca, Jean go home. G, Ashley go home. And Becca and Jean are basically just talking about the baby and how sad it is that the baby ended up passing away. And it's even more sadder because the kid wasn't sick. And Becca's like, yeah, you know, it's just so sad, you know, since I've been sick for all this time, you know, maybe they should have just took me instead. And Jean, being the religious person that he is like, well, you know, if that's how God intended, blah, blah, blah. You know how a lot of these Christians be. I feel like that's just not an appropriate thing to say when it's a baby that dies, but what do I know? Over the course of a couple of weeks, Becca started to get drastically better. And they also didn't know what the hell Becca had wrong with her either. Okay, Becca was just sick. Okay, like I'm talking about can't walk sometimes, can't eat sometimes, throwing up water, like, but she ended up making a really drastic recovery after Ashley and G's newborn had passed away, which was very good for Catherine. So unfortunately, with Becca not being able to work or really take care of herself, Catherine had to stop going to school at a really young age to take care of her mom. So while her dad was at work, she was taking care of her mom because the dad had to go to work to, you know, get money to pay the bills. So she hadn't went to school for maybe a good 3 to 4 months. It could have been longer. So after the funeral, she ends up going back to school, and everybody is just looking at her like, y'all, like she's the devil or something. And at this point, she asks one of her friends, who is no longer really talking to her at this point. She goes up to one of the boys that she's been talking to. Maybe we're going to call him Freddie or some shit, right? So she goes up to Freddie and she's like, oh, por que está un abgadem consal? Like, why is everybody looking at me like that? And he just looks at her. Doesn't answer, doesn't anything. So then she goes back to her other friend. I don't remember what I named her. What did I name the other friend? Nicole. She goes back to Nicole and she's like, Nicole, like, I understand that like a lot of people don't want to talk to me right now, but like, I really need to know and I need to understand, like, why is everybody so mad at me? Like, what did I do? Like, I'm not even that new anymore. I've been here for, a year and some change. Like, ain't no way. Like, everybody just keeps looking at me like this. And I really don't know the reason. And Nicole looks her dead in the face and says, "Você é um petit lugawou. You are the daughter of a lugawou." Becca's sitting there and she's like, get the fuck out of here. Because this is the thing, right? There's lugawou, the mystical creature, and then there's lugawou, the insult, right? A lot of times if you genuinely, insanely want to insult someone, you'll say, oh, say oh, lugawou, you are lugawou. Like, that's a really big insult. So she's thinking like she's just insulting her and she's just popping shit. They scream at each other. Yabdi lut bitties. Mind you, these are kids. Okay. They can't be older than like 10 or 11 at this point. While she's on top of Nicole, Nicole's like, no, like your mom is literally a lugawou. She's the one that ate that baby. And then in Port-au-Prince, she was eating babies too. Just going off. And she's just like, don't fucking talk about my mother like that. Ja, ja, ja. Of course, all of this is in Creole. She gets kicked out of school. Haitian schools don't really play with that conduct, okay, and fighting and stuff like that. So she gets kicked out. Her parents are looking at her like, why would you go and fight in school? Like, I don't understand. And this is especially embarrassing for Becca, who is a teacher at a nearby school. So she's like, well, they said that you were a lugawou and I was going to have them calling my mom a lugawou, da, 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 da. And Jean is just like, oh, that's preposterous. Like, why the fuck would she say that? Da, da, da. You know what? Fuck it. We're going to find you another school. You don't need to be in that school. Ja, 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 ja. But Becca is just sitting there like, I don't know where they would get that from. Like, I'm not understanding, you know, kind of like shocked, but kind of like trying to play it off, but kind of like, she knows some shit is going on, right? So at this point, of course, Catherine ends up going to another school and things seem to get a little bit better from there on. She had to go to school like way further out and it was like a lot to try to get her to where she had to go every day, but they had to because she got kicked out for fighting because they was out here calling her mother a lugawou. So one day, Jean and Becca end up having a conversation about Catherine and her behavior and how they had to move her to another school. And Jean was like, I just don't understand why they would call you a lugawou. These kids are so fueka, like these kids are so disrespectful. Like, where do they get off calling people names like that? That's just absolutely horrendous. And Becca's like, yeah, yeah, kids are mean, you know how kids are, it is what it is. And he's like, yeah, like, don't worry about it. I know it bothers you, but it's not something that you should be worried about. Like, I know that none of this has anything to do with you, because, if you were a lugawou, I would know you was a lugawou. Fast forward to one night when she had to go on out. Okay, again, if you guys do not know what a lugawou is, I suggest you guys do your own research or watch the videos that I made about lugawus. One day, Becca was taking off her skin to change into her form. If you guys didn't already peep by now that Becca was the lugawou and Becca was out here killing all these kids and killed her own godchild, I don't know what to tell you. So one time she's going out in her form in the middle of the night and her daughter catches her. But her daughter doesn't say anything. She's kind of just like peeking through the door. And she's looking at her mom basically transform into a cat. And she is shocked. She is terrified. She doesn't know what to do with this information, but she goes and she tells her dad. And her dad is obviously just sitting there looking at her like, why would you lie about your mom like that? If your mom was a lugawou, I would know about it. And I feel like part of this has to do with the pride thing. Because it's like, you don't want to look stupid. Like, if your wife is a fucking lugawou or whatever the case may be, at this point, people are going to be looking at you like, so you didn't know you was sleeping with somebody that was lugawou? Because they have to change into their form at night. Unless, like, it's one of those nights where y'all just not up fucking or something like that. Like, how do you not know that your wife is a lugawou? So he's in denial, right? He's just like, no, that's not true. You got that shit from your little friends. Maybe at this new school, they talking shit about her too. From Retio no l'école, I have to take you out this school. Like, this is some bullshit. And she's like, no, like, I saw her. Like, I physically saw her transform into a cat and go outside. And her skin was on the floor. And he's just like, mad, like to the point where he literally beats the shit out of her. Like, he beats her with a belt and he's like, stop fucking saying your mom's a lugawou. In the back of Jean's head, he's just thinking like, okay, hold up. Maybe there's something to this. All these kids are dying, in the past places that we went. And then, now this newborn died in the neighborhood. And, maybe there's some truth to this. So then, unfortunately, a few more newborns ended up dying. And now Jean, instead of accepting what's going on, chooses to move again. So now they move all the way to OKap. If you guys look at a Haitian map, you guys are probably thinking like, what type of shit? It's a distance, okay? From Port-au-Prince to Akay, a nice little distance. From Akay to OKap, nigga, that is a distance, okay? So now, yo tombe OKap. The thing is with Haitians, Haitian parle. So everybody already knows, okay? Everybody already knows these motherfucking lugawus are here in town, okay? This lugawou family has come to town to eat babies, okay? And the thing is, what people in OKap are completely different than people from other parts of Haiti. People from other parts of Haiti are very like chill, very welcoming, very accommodating, very whatever. People from OKap be looking at you like, who the fuck are you? Where the fuck do you come from? And why the fuck are you here? They don't play that shit. When they hear that someone's doing something wrong, okay, for example, with the kidnappers, OKap was the only place in Haiti for real, not the only, but one of the very few places in Haiti where they were literally out here cutting kidnappers' heads off. They was not fucking around. It was like, oh, you look like a kidnapper? You have kidnapper friends? I'm sorry, you have to die. Okay? And people at OKap have just always been like that. They don't tolerate no bullshit. So they saw this family and they just looking at them like, oh, we heard about y'all. We heard about y'all. And they're not biting their tongues either. They're like, oh, you came to eat some babies. Oh, well, you came to cause some problems. You came to kill some kids. Oh, you better not have your daughter in school with our kids because we gonna fuck her up. Like, they are literally just giving it to her, okay? So because of this unwelcoming welcome, they ended up having to kind of nestle themselves like kind of away from people. And Catherine was not able to go to school. But this would not last too long because within the first month of them staying there, Jean ends up seeing Becca transform into a cat and sneak out of the house. Now, obviously, he was distraught, but I feel like just hearing this story, just retelling this story again, I feel like he knew she was lugawou at this point. Because how the fuck everywhere you go, babies die? Like, what do you think was going on, Jean? So Jean sees this and he is flabbergasted. He's in shock. He doesn't know what to do. And he's just like Like, you know, but he still wanted to really make sure, which I don't know what there is to make sure of. You kind of just saw her transform into a cat. So Jean noticed a pattern in the nights that she would go out. It would usually be the nights where she would get extra sick. Remember how I told you guys she got better? Well, she ended up getting sick again. Okay. And this is specifically because she was no longer killing any kids, because she was really trying to keep things on the down low. You know, every time they moved somewhere, she wouldn't do anything for a while. But since she wasn't killing kids to take their energy, take their soul, take their blood, whatever the case may be, she started getting sick. And he realized on the days where she was getting extra sick would be the nights that she would actually go out, try to take a child and kill them and do whatever it is that she needed to do. So at this point, he started tracking and controlling, like, okay, she's super sick today. That means she's going to go out. So by this time, they had 3 kids, and they actually did have certain family in OKap, but they were like kind of like further from where they were. But he took the kids and brought them to a family member's house. And, you know, he kind of tried to play it off as, oh, yeah, you know, we're going to have a romantic night without the kids type vibe. Yeah, that's not what it was. OK, he wanted to catch her going out, OK, in her cat-like form. Since that particular family lived far, he didn't want to make it a 1-day trip. He made it like a 3-day trip, specifically because 1, again, they're far, and 2, because like, OK, if I don't catch her this day, I could catch her another day. So he goes, brings those kids over there. Sure enough, one of the 3 nights, Becca changed into a cat again, and he finds her skin on the floor. So if you guys are not aware, one way to kill a lugawou is you can't let them get back into their skin. By the time the sun comes up, they'll basically die because they're not supposed to be out in any type of sunlight. So he saw her skin on the floor and he just poured salt all over it so she couldn't get back in. So he wanted to make sure, which I don't understand what there is to make sure of, the bitch change into a cat. But anyway, she comes in and she's trying to get into her skin. And he's like, you're a fucking lugawou. He just starts going off, okay? Y'all, just starts reaming. Starts like foaming at the mouth mad. And he's like, oh, I can't fucking let you around our kids. You're this, you're that, da da da. Don't ask me what the cat is doing. I mean, I'm guessing the cat is just looking at him like, bitch, let me back into my skin. But it doesn't matter because now there's salt all over the skin. And he just runs out the house. He literally sets the house ablaze and kills Becca inside, or the cat inside. And this becomes a really big deal to the people in OKap because they're like, wow, like you really killed your wife. Now, although a lot of people in OKap knew about the story of her being a lugawou, there were some people that didn't believe it. There were some people that were like, you killed your wife? Like, why would you kill your wife? Like, if you thought she was a lugawou, like, why didn't you try to help her or something like that? While there's a lot of other people like, wow, good job, you know, saving the kids in the community and da 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 da. So it's very, very interesting because this is a very common story that you'll hear all over Haiti and amongst Haitian communities of people killing their spouses because they think that they are lugawus, or people in the neighborhood killing people because they're suspected to be lugawus. It's a very, very common story. So if it sounds familiar, that's because it's something that happens all the time. You could even Google some stories right now where you'll find, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah got killed because they were suspected of being a lugawou. It's a very legitimate fear for a lot of people, specifically because lugawus killing babies is not just about killing babies. They're basically taking the soul and the energy of that child. And if you have a lugawou in your neighborhood, your child is at risk. So if someone is suspected to be a lugawou, they really tend to want to get rid of them right away by killing them. Moving away or whatever the case may be isn't really suffice because at the end of the day, they could come and get the child at any given moment. And the fear is that they'll go to somebody else's community and continue killing these children. With that being said, comment down below. Did you guys guess that Becca was the lugawou? Did you guys guess that Jean was going to kill his wife because she was a lugawou? Leave your comments down below. I would love to hear them. And of course, definitely leave down your lugawou stories down below. If you'd like to share your stories, please send them to the KrikKrakCOZ email. Please don't send it to my personal Gmail because if you do, I'm going to delete it. With that being said, make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe. Do all that. Follow me on Instagram. And I'm going to see y'all next time. Bye!